Hello, guys. Good morning from Costa Rica. Welcome to another monthly Costa Rican Vacations webinar live. I'm here in San Jose, and today we're going to be chatting all about the topic, the 7 best days in Costa Rica. And I am excited to get into it with you guys today. Today we have two guests. Ulrick is coming back to join us. Ulrick, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Adam. Great to see you again, mate.
Good stuff. And Ulrick, whereabouts are you based?
Here in San Jose, on the backside of the San Jose airport, over here in Heredia, Belén.
Very nice, very nice. So you've got the same lovely broken sun that I do outside at the moment.
Yeah, but it was absolutely gorgeous this morning.
Beautiful.
Sunrise was spectacular.
Very nice. And Laura, thank you for joining us for the first time. Laura, how are you doing?
Hey Adam, I'm doing great. How are
Where
you today?
I'm all good, thanks. Whereabouts are you based here in Costa Rica?
I'm in La Fortuna, right next to the Arenal volcano.
Very beautiful. What's the weather like this morning in the middle of well,
It
late,
is
late September?
it's beautiful today. You can see the sun shining in behind me. We got a clear volcano today. It's beautiful.
Awesome. I know that obviously we're kind of in the green season as we're recording this in September, October. Sometimes it tends to rain a little bit. Um, does it surprise you when you can see the volcano, or is it actually more common than not seeing it at this time of year?
You know, when I first came to Costa Rica and visited this area, I didn't get to see the volcano the first time. It was cloudy and I never saw it. But now that I live near it, I do see it usually at least once a day, either early in the morning or in the late evening. So, it's always a surprise though when you see it because it's
Yeah.
just a stunning view.
Very true. I was there 2 weekends ago checking out one of our properties and the views were amazing. It rained in the afternoon. It was lovely and tropical, but it's a great time to visit. But we're not here to discuss weather this time. As mentioned, we're going to cover the best 7 days in Costa Rica, and that means an awful lot to a lot of different people depending on who's traveling. So as we discuss this topic today, we're going to cover a couple of principal groups. Maybe you're a family, maybe you're a couple, or maybe you're a group of friends coming down. So we'll always try and work with that audience because, of course, the answers vary depending on how big your group is and what the purpose of your trip is. So we'll try and be as flexible as possible, but it's a very exciting topic to discuss. As always, please don't forget to get your travel questions into us using the questions and answers box here on the Zoom meeting. And we'll actually answer potentially some of them live. Ulrich or Laura might type them out to you, but we'll actually get those questions live on air after our topical discussion today on the best 7 days here in Costa Rica. So get your questions in, and they can be anything travel related to Costa Rica. Ulrich and Laura are here to answer your questions. If you're watching this on YouTube and not watching it live, please subscribe. And if you have any questions for us, let us know in the descriptions box below and we'll get straight back to you. Maybe you're interested in a future vacation. Maybe you've got some questions about interesting areas around the country. We want to know about it. So we've got loads of questions, 10 or 11 to get through, and we're going to cover everything from tours, regions, hotels, where to stay. Should you be mixing up your vacation in 2 or 3 locations? What can you do in 7 days? So let's kick off. The first question, Ulrich, I'll throw it over to you. Which are the must-see destinations in Costa Rica if you only have 1 week? And that's important. You've only got 7 days. A lot of people take a 1 week break, especially from North America. How do you go about answering that question?
I would say that the most important thing is to see the best of both worlds in Costa Rica. The both worlds. When I say that, I mean the volcano, the iconic volcano, as well as the beaches. Now, there's several beaches, there's several volcanoes, but the two top things that put Costa Rica on the map, not just in terms of travel, but even in Hollywood, they're making movies about it. You'll see the Jurassic Parks and yada yada yada. You've got to go to the volcano and you've got to go to one of the beaches, and that kind of is an absolute must, in my opinion, for a first-time traveler.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point, and I think you guys are going to probably hear this on repeat quite a lot about trying to break your trip into 2, 3, and 4, and mixing up with the volcano and the beach. And I think Laura, it's important, right? Because you actually live in La Fortuna. We're going to discuss probably quite a lot the area of the Arenal volcano, as it does combine the volcano rainforest and the beach. How does it differ, Laura, if you're thinking about a family or perhaps you're a couple, when you think about those two areas?
So I think it would the biggest difference for me is just the type of trip. And so when it comes down to a couple or a family, I think the Arenal volcano is perfect for both. If you're here on like a romantic vacation, we have tons of fabulous hot spring resorts that you can stay at. It's beautiful for couples and families because we do have some hot spring resorts that are geared more towards families where there's more pools and lots of places to eat, lots of families on site and activities to do around the area are geared for both. You can do a romantic private hike of the volcano if you're a couple. And if you're a family, you can do zip lining and adventure packed activities. And then when it comes to the beaches, really for the type of vacation and the number of travelers, it would vary for which beach I would recommend. We do have the fantastic Manuel Antonio area, and I tend to recommend that area more for families or people looking for even more adventure and wildlife. Versus for couples, if they're looking for a nice, relaxing, romantic vacation, I might lean more towards the Guanacaste area where we have more beachfront properties and white sand beaches.
That's a really good point. And as you guys both mentioned, I think the number's kind of crazy. I think it's around 80% of all travelers, and we've been doing this for over 25 years now, building vacations. About 80% of everybody on their first visit always go to the Arenal volcano, whether you're flying into San Jose, the international airport in the center, or you're flying into Liberia in the north. And again, that has an impact perhaps for your last destination. The Arenal volcano is equidistant at about 2.5, 3 hours. So it makes it a great experience, especially for adventure. Like you mentioned, Laura, hot springs, an incredible iconic volcano, which is like the adventure capital. Or when someone tells you, like Laura just made a really good point, if you're potentially a family and you want to see more wildlife during the beach experience, you go to Manuel Antonio, whereas Guanacaste for the second half of your vacation has more all-inclusive resorts, maybe larger resorts, which are obviously very nice for families. How do you separate those two beach regions? Say I'm coming to the first time, I've agreed I'm going to Arenal, I want to see the hot springs. Well, how do you separate them when you have that question?
That's a good question because it's not a one fits all kind of size in terms of when you get a family. The key question that I like to hear from the clients, especially if it's a first time client, they tell me, are they more adventure family or are they more nature family? So if it is more nature family, then I'm going to automatically swing towards Manuel Antonio. The adventure side, you can do probably the same kind of adventure in Guanacaste over Manuel Antonio. However, if I find like they're more in their teen age group or upper teens, younger families that have the young adults that are traveling. I get a lot of parents that will say, oh, I'm coming with my kids. I'm like, how old are your kids? Oh, they're 21 and 24. Well, they're not really kids, they're adults, but they still call them kids, mom and dad. Then I would tend to plan more of the Guanacaste because of the adventure tourism there. There's much more, in my view, of activities to do. So you can kind of continue an activity adventure vacation package versus we're going to go see the monkeys, the sloths, the toucans, and that. You'll still get that up in the north, but my preference is it hones in on what the family dynamics are. Is it adventure or is it nature? That will kind of skew my decision on that process.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think this is why we try and do these webinars and cover as much ground as we can. But it really depends on the traveler. Like you mentioned, is it adventure they're looking for? Is it nature? Is it relaxation? How much do you want to do? Potentially also weather. I'm guessing, Laura, you might think second, if you are coming and taking advantage of the green season, the low season, late August to November, maybe you want to try and see more sunshine. So maybe you focus on Guanacaste, because that's important over the Central Pacific and Manuel Antonio, which of course is greener. So then it comes back to nature. Yeah, such good points. Laura, if people want to spend 7 days in one location, how do you answer that question? Go, no, I'm really set. I don't want to move. Maybe I'm flying into Liberia in the north. I want to go to a beach. I know this question comes up a lot. I want the beach experience, maybe a resort. Can I go to a volcano? Can I visit the Arenal volcano in a day? What are my options if I'm pretty set in not moving?
That's a good question. If you want to stay at the beach, you're flying into Liberia and you want to kind of stay close to the airport, somewhere within an hour to an hour and a half from the airport, and you don't want to pack up and move to another hotel, which is fair, it's your vacation. I wouldn't recommend a day trip to Arenal because it is too far, in my opinion. It's about 3 hours on a good day with no traffic or
Yeah.
no issues with the roads. So that's there and back. It makes for a really long day, but there are other volcanoes in the region that you can visit. And there is also like the Rio Celeste area, which isn't too far if you really want to try and get that rainforest experience. You can travel up there for a day trip and still get to experience the rainforest and some of the wildlife that it offers. So that's a great way if you do want to spend your 7 days just at the beach instead of splitting up your trip.
Yeah, really good point. And I think this is one of the advantages of Guanacaste, having those beautiful big beaches. So you feel like it's maybe more of a beach vacation, but having access to some of those areas, like you mentioned, Rincon de la Vieja, Rio Celeste, there is an active volcano there. You can do day trips that are only maybe an hour, hour and a half out. So you can do those tours, get a feel, and then go back to the same location. Ulrich, do people ever ask to go to Manuel Antonio for the nature and the beach just for a week? Maybe they're flying into San Jose and they don't want to do two. How do you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell them that Manuel Antonio covers a lot of RNL, all but two things, right? Hot springs and volcano.
Yeah.
So if those are not boxes that need to be ticked, Manuel Antonio is the perfect place. In fact, I had a family yesterday that booked a full week at Manuel Antonio, and so as long as they're aware that you'll get the jungle and the ocean vibe and the mountainous vibe, you just won't see the volcano and you won't get the hot springs, and that's what I tell them. You can do pretty much everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, really good answer. That makes a lot of sense. Guys, the questions are flying in. Thank you. Ekta, we'll get to those questions. Family travel in October. Some people wanting to know about tours. We're going to discuss those in detail as well. Laura G, thank you very much. Guys, keep those questions coming in. We will be answering them. Some of them we're actually going to cover anyway with the questions that we have lined up. But before I go into talking about relaxation, exploration, resorts, and tours, Laura, in terms of breaking up the trip, we've discussed the importance, especially if you're coming for the first time. Maybe you want to see the volcano, then you want to choose a beach, and you could choose Guanacaste in the north or Manuel Antonio. Again, depends where you're flying in, which airport. Is 3 nights adventure, volcano, and then 4 nights relaxation beach? Is that the only way to go, or is that why is that the recommended choice?
So it's definitely not the only way to go. You can split your trip up however you see fits, whether that be just the beach, just the volcano, or a little bit of both. However, if you do want to experience the volcano as well as the beach, I personally recommend 3 nights near the volcano, 4 nights at the beach. That gives you 3 days to do all of the activities, have a lot of adventure, see the wildlife at the volcano. As well as it can sometimes be cloudy. It almost guarantees that you will see the clear cone-shaped volcano in those 3 days. And then you've got 4 days to relax on the beach, kind of wind down your vacation in a way. So I do recommend the 3-4 split. However, it's not set in stone. You can do it any way that you prefer.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Ulrich, I know you've been, planning vacations for years now with us. Do your clients and your guests that come down, do they ever come back going, wow, I need a vacation from the vacation because, oh, that was really awesome. There was a lot of adventure. So when we talk about the 3-4, is it always 3 days, adventure, and is 4 days enough for the relaxation, or does it just depend on the guest type?
It depends on the guest type, absolutely. But it's funny you mentioned that. I did have a client recently that told me, hey, he booked a family fishing vacation. So they did tons of fishing and they loved it. They said, we want to come back, but we want to do the volcano at the end. We just want to relax in the hot springs after all that fishing.
Okay.
So we did a 5-2, which was really nice. So they were able to get in a couple of days of fun fishing, which was a lot of work for them, being out in the sun on the boat all day. And then they just went to the Arenal and did the relaxation springs. And I think they did a half day hanging bridges just to kind of do the volcano, see the views and the volcano. So that was a kind of a nice trip, 5-2 instead.
That's interesting. That's a good point. I guess if you're going to do a lot of strenuous activity, sport fishing can be quite tiring, especially for 5 days straight. And then actually choosing an area like the hot springs to actually relax, as we always discuss it, the adventure capital of Costa Rica, go to Arenal volcano. There's loads to do, every tour you can possibly fathom. But actually just do the hot springs, chill out. You'll probably feel quite relaxed after it, right?
Yep, they loved it. Yep.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Okay, so let's get into it in terms of tours. And again, guys, please keep your questions flying in. And if you're on YouTube, give us a like if you're enjoying this. As always, I've got to plug the webinar. But you guys are actually asking this in the chats, and I have it later on. Laura, when it comes to the top tours and excursions that you cannot miss for the first time, and we've got an anonymous attendee asking the question, if we only do one big adventure, do you go for rafting, zip lining, or something else? And presuming this might be an Arenal, because you're probably going to go to Arenal first.
I mean, completely depends on the traveler, but you cannot go wrong with ziplining in Arenal. Ziplining through the rainforest with views of the volcano, to me is just unbeatable. I recently just did it myself at one of the parks we work with, which is Sky Adventures, and it was an absolutely incredible experience. And I highly recommend if you're looking for an adventure tour, that is the one to do.
Yeah, Sky Adventures is awesome, and the views are amazing, especially if you get up there and you see the clear on a clear day, and you can also see the Arenal Lake. The
Yeah.
big, massive, well, this man-made lake. It looks incredible. Yeah, zip lining. That was one of my very first adventure tours I ever did in 2006. When I came here, I was in Monteverde. So if you're in the Cloud Forest, which we might touch on, that's a great place to do it. So I know you haven't put your name in, anonymous attendee. Definitely, probably zip lining. And again, you don't have to just be in Arenal, right? You can do zip lining pretty much all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Ziplining can pretty well be done anywhere in Costa Rica. But maybe I'm biased because I live here in Arenal. It is absolutely exceptional. But I mean, then sometimes we do get clients who are afraid of heights. So there are other adventure activities, like you mentioned, the whitewater rafting, which also is a exhilarating activity if you're looking for that adventure.
For sure. I mean, I've got a whole list of activities here. And Ulrick, you've already touched on hot springs, which can be found again all over the Arenal area. Different hotels have thermal pools. You can do day trips, or maybe you're staying at a hotel with the hot springs. Ulrich, if you're not doing zip lining, or maybe you are, and you really want to do 3 days of adventure, what is the rafting like in Arenal? What's the age group? And is there a specific time of year that you should maybe do it over others?
Yeah. So good question on Arenal, the rafting. The rafting there is quite exciting. It is most of the year you're going to get a category 2, 3, which is great for pretty much all ages. I would say eight on up. There are some times of the year when you can look for a category 3, 4. But one of the things that this is like an extra nugget that's important for those that are attending today. We offer a great variety of what they call transfer tours. So if someone tells me that rafting is there, that is one of the most popular ones that I sell, and that is adding it between the two destinations. So you'll get picked up from your hotel, whether at the beach or at the volcano. They'll take you with your luggage and everything, and you'll get into a raft, drop you off at the river, and you'll go rafting. They'll include lunch and everything. And then at the end of the rafting, you'll change into your dry clothes. They've got restrooms, bathrooms, and everything. And then you hop in the van. Your luggage stays secure with the driver. And then they drop you off at the other hotel. That is the transfer day that is a must. If you're into rafting, the reason being is you get to do a tour on that day that you would not necessarily lose on a tour on a day of going between the volcano and one of the beach destinations. So it's one of my highly recommended. So you bring up the rafting, absolutely, it's a must.
That's a really good point. And it's kind of like a lot of people talk about our private transfers between destinations as unique experiences in themselves, in so much as you have usually a bilingual driver, it's private, you can stop, get lunch or breakfast whenever. If you say like that, Ulrich, and you actually turn it into a proper experience, an excursion where you're rafting, you've now got those other 3 days or the other days before to do other tours.
Yeah.
And Laura, as you're based in La Fortuna, you mentioned we've discussed rafting, you've mentioned zip lining. you can also do a lot of combination tours, right? So if you want to do a full day, somebody was asking about one big adventure, you could do like a 3-in-1 combo or a 4-in-1 combo, mix the hanging bridges, maybe some zip line, go to the Arenal National Park and finish up at the hot springs. Do we push that a lot? Is that a lot of, is that an adventure that people look for?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people really want to maximize their time at the volcano with the adventures that we offer. So we have a lot of combination tours, whether it be zip lining and hanging bridges, or hanging bridges and a volcano hike, or adding on the visit to the La Fortuna waterfall. We can really combine whatever you're looking to do. We can make it work to make sure you get to see and do everything that you want to do in the area. Um, it can make for some busy days. But I mean, if you are up for it, we can absolutely arrange it and you can get the most out of those days in whatever order and whatever you want to see. We can make it work for sure.
Awesome. I mean, we've covered a lot in this first 20 minutes, especially with the Arenal concept. I will ask you both if, because you made a really good point, Ulrich, if you're trying to save time and making those the trips between, combining something like rafting or doing an excursion through the transfer. If you are staying at a hotel, a resort or a boutique hotel that has hot springs inside the property, you don't need to do that experience either outside, because you could do all those tours, come back, and you're on property. I'm going to ask you both. Ulrich, can you give me your top two resort style hotels in Arenal that you would recommend? And then Laura, if you can think of your two favorite boutique hotels. Maybe the resorts, Ulrich, are more focused on families, and Laura, maybe your boutique options are more the couple adult based side. So Ulrich, what would you recommend for a family?
I'm gonna cheat, Adam. I'm gonna take three.
Okay,
Okay.
go for it. Even
Uh,
better.
the Springs is the top one. That is a great family resort with plenty of activities on site as well, with the hot springs on the hotel grounds and down below, down by the river. Down below by the river is where you can do tubing, horseback trails, and everything. So that one is just like that is the number one, carte blanche. Then the other one that's in a nice 4-star category. There's two of them that are tied, in my opinion. That's the Kyoto and Arenal Springs, not to be confused with the Springs. So both are great family hotels. They do working arrangements for me, a guy like me who has 3 kids. It's a little difficult with my mom, their mom not wanting them to sleep in another room. So both hotels work for a family of 5 in their rooms. And they also have some really nice suites, as well as great food service. I love both of them. Both great 4-star properties, great service, and on-site hot springs. So I love them both, actually. That's why I stole 3.
I love it. We will add all of this information into the description, guys. I've got Wendy working with me in the background, furiously trying to get me the link so we can actually share some of these options. I'm also going to share a couple of videos on our YouTube channel. So if you do want to see more of these tour experiences, you can check them out. Have a look at the description and the links here. Actor, I think you've raised your hand. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. We're actually going to keep going with the webinar, but if you do have more questions, please feel free to fill up these questions and answers, and we will get back to you. I promise you that. At the end of the webinar, probably in around 20-25 minutes, 11:45 local time here in Costa Rica. So you mentioned, Ulrich, give us the list again. You said the Springs Resort?
Yep, the Springs. And then Kyoto, Arenal Kyoto, and
Yep.
Arenal Springs.
And Arenal Springs. Perfect. Great options. Different price points as well. Super luxurious, very nice, comfortable. And having the hot springs on site, believe me, after a long day of rafting, canopy tour, hiking, you want to be in those hot springs.
Yeah.
Laura, in terms of smaller boutique options, which we love to sell because we know the service is amazing, and perhaps you're a couple or even a honeymoon couple and you want to get that Arenal experience, where are you recommending? What's your top 2 or even 3?
My top two for Arnold, it's hard to narrow down. We have some great hotels that we work with in the area, but my number one spot has to go to Nyara Resorts. Great, eco lodge, great for couples. I recently got to stay there and the service was just phenomenal. It is a beautiful hotel. Every room has its own private heated plunge pool, and it is just absolutely fantastic. So that is my number one option for a boutique, especially romantic style vacation. Um, And second, this is my personal choice, but I would go with Chichagua Rainforest Lodge. It's a little more off the beaten path, and maybe that's why I like it. You get a unique experience, and they have just built their new tree houses, and they are great for couples. You have your private tree house right up in the forest with a private hot tub right on your balcony.
Very cool. That's a really interesting one. Nyada's amazing. Like you mentioned, you've got three different products inside Nyada, the original gardens, the slightly more luxurious Nyada Springs, and then the newer Nyara tented camps, all with beautiful views, thermal pools at the front of their pool. Really, really nice. Chichagua, that's a good one. That's out there. That's about half an hour outside of the actual Arenal volcano, like you mentioned, but you do get that seclusion, that kind of feeling of being off the beaten path, a lot of privacy and really nice new villas, like you mentioned. Yeah, really good one. I will share you guys the links to those products. I will ask this question now because Hector's just asked. She was asking, is the Springs Resort accessible? So I wanted to kind of answer that question super quickly because it's actually one of the more accessible properties. It is out the way because it's got amazing views and maybe it's 20 minutes outside La Fortuna town, but it's actually built on 5 to 6 different platforms and there is an elevator that gets you around and you can avoid all the steps straight into hot springs. So I'd probably say yes, super accessible if that's a big resort that you're looking to experience. Okay, so let's swing around a little bit here. We've discussed an awful lot about going to the volcano first, then the beaches. Before we touch on the beaches, maybe a couple of properties. If you've already been to the Arenal volcano, an area that comes up an awful lot is Monteverde, the cloud forest with its biological reserve quite close by when you look on the map, and also about 3 hours away from San Jose or Liberia. The roads got a bit better. Maybe you're coming for the second time. Maybe you just want the experience. Ulrich, how do you define the area when someone goes, oh, but I've heard about Monteverde and the nature I see is really cool and beautiful and I want to experience a cloud forest. Can I fit that into my week? If so, how do I do that? Or should I just go Monteverde Beach or do I do Volcano Beach? How do you balance all that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Adam. Actually, I was just in Monteverde this weekend with my family celebrating my wife's birthday, and it was just amazing. It's one of a kind. There's very few cloud forests left in the world. I would like to point that out. What makes it unique is the environment, the climate, and everything. And it's nice and warm in the daytime, and it's chilly at nighttime. You get the clouds. You get to see from the hotel I was staying at was at Senda. You get to see the sunset on the Gulf of Nicoya from your room, drinking a coffee in the afternoon. It is very, very different. But to answer your question, I would not put Monteverde in a 7-day package. I would tell people if you're more of a naturalist and it's not a big deal on a volcano or the hot springs, then Monteverde would tick the box for me. We have some of the best birding in the country up there, the famous Quetzal bird, but not just the Quetzal. The hotel that I was at, Senda, they had dozens of different kinds of hummingbirds all throughout the property in the morning. And then they had these turkey birds and they had these, I was just like, wow. I mean, it's just all over the place. And so it's more, in my opinion, there's way more wildlife up there in Monteverde than Arenal. So if you're really into wildlife, then that's definitely a place I would put the 2 or 3 nights on the beginning of a trip going up there and then headed down to the beach either in Guanacaste or Manuel Antonio.
Yeah, really good point. And again, I feel like I'm a broken record on repeat, but I mean, Laura, is it so true that it really depends on the individual about what you're looking to get out of your vacation? Because like Ulrich said, it's impossible to try and do 3 locations in a week comfortably because you're just going to be running around a lot. Even though Monteverde looks very close to Arenal, that's a 3-4 hour transfer, maybe across the lake or around the lake to get there. The roads, it's a very mountainous area. It is really unique and beautifully located. Laura, could you give a couple of recommendations about hotels that you like to recommend in Monteverde? Because most of them are smaller boutique hotels. We had a question from Carol Lenz. What hotels do we work with in the area? A number of them, Carol. And Laura's going to give you her best choices. But Laura, and is it also common that maybe people don't necessarily go to the beach? If you're not necessarily looking for the beach, you can also mix it Monteverde and Arenal, can you not?
Yeah, absolutely. I have clients who reach out to me sometimes who maybe they're from California or they're from Florida. They live at the beach and they're not looking for a beach vacation. They're looking for something different. And so we will build a trip based on Arenal and Monteverde so they experience both of those. And I think that's a great option if you're looking for wildlife and adventure. And then to answer your questions about the hotels in Monteverde, like Adam said, we work with a lot in the area. Depends on the travelers. Ulrich mentioned Senda. That is my favorite hotel in the area. It's beautiful. And for families, I like to recommend Poco a Poco. It's one of the only ones with a pool on site. So it's a great option for families as well. But again, we work with tons of hotels in the area and they're really all amazing.
Awesome. Totally agree.
And sorry, Adam, just
Yeah,
to
go for
quickly
it.
add on, you mentioned the pool, Laura. I love Poco Poco because it has an indoor pool. But I was there at Senda this weekend. They are adding a pool. It'll be an outdoor pool, but it'll be thermally heated. And so now Senda's going to take that box for a family too. And I stayed in the family suite, which is perfect for my family, which works at Senda.
That is a really awesome thing to know because, like you say, I quite like Poco a Poco for the indoor feel and the heated pool, which is, I guess, kind of common for a couple of properties. I think Monteverde Lodge also has an outdoor semi-heated pool, so you can kind of be in the pool and see the cloud forest pass you by. If Senda gets the pool as well, like that's a beautiful location to relax and just watch the nature.
And one
Um,
other thing on up there in Monteverde, I did do the sister tour. We mentioned Sky in Arenal. There's a Sky in
uh,
Monteverde, and I did the gondola for the first time. It was amazing. You could see Arenal from there, so you could see the lake, you could see Arenal. It's the second highest point in the mountainous region, and you could see the valley of Golfo Nicoya. So it was a great sky adventure up there in Monteverde as well.
So that's funny. When I mentioned to you guys that was the very first canopy tour I ever did. That was Sky Adventures, and I was traveling. It was the high season. It was the middle of February, but it happened to be incredibly cloudy, and there was a storm coming in, and we were still doing the zip line. It still operates. I actually felt safer on the cable because the tower was so high, it was actually swaying. I was like, "Get me on the cable," and then you just disappear into a cloud, and you can't see like a kilometer nearly in length. If you've got amazing views as well, like you say, seeing the Arenal volcano from that side in Monteverde, an area I used to live in, it's yeah, really, really cool for one of your first time experiences. Very, very good. I'm going to share. I've shared with you guys the Monteverde page, and you can actually have a look at our website and all the products that we actually offer, Carol. So if you do click on that link, you'll get that. And I'm going to add Sender here and Poco a Poco, which was recommended by Laura, if you are looking to mix up maybe the Cloud Forest experience on your 7 days. Guys, we're covering an awful lot. The questions are flying in, loads to get through later on. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. I'm going to share with you guys as well a little bit more information on zip lining, as that's super popular, especially in Arenal and Monteverde, which was where the very first zip line canopy tour in the country can be found just above Sender. If you walk up the little hill, you've got the original canopy tour, which is kind of a fun little tidbit as well for you guys. Okay, so in terms of now, let's move on to the beach. All right? We've discussed a lot of people love to, they're in the mountains, maybe Arenal for adventure, maybe Monteverde for nature. Now I'm going to either Guanacaste or Manuel Antonio, as we touched on. A lot of people, Ulrich, always ask about the all-inclusive experience. I want all-inclusive. I don't want to worry. I want to pay the cost. All my meals and drinks are included. When it comes to all-inclusive resorts in Costa Rica, do a lot of people ask initially, I want to stay there for 7 days and then do the experience? And then, or do you then try to encourage people to break it up? Do you suggest they stay at the resort or should they go to a boutique hotel? How do you answer that?
Well, typically I let them know right out of the gate that Costa Rica is not like the all-inclusive resorts of Mexico and Dominican Republic and other places. The reason being is that Costa Rica is an ultra super safe country, and so the main focus of these resorts in these areas that were created many years ago was to keep people on property so that they don't venture off, so they can feel safe, give them their meals, and they say, oh yeah, I did Mexico. Well, you were in a resort on the beach, and they tell you don't go past that gate. So I always tell my clients, look, if you're open, Costa Rica is very different, unique experience. In fact, the average hotel in Costa Rica is 40 rooms. So we're not built like Mexico with these mega resorts where you're going to be in a cattle cart kind of experience where they put you in, like when you're going to Disney, you're really going to a boutique experience, and you want to get to know the mom and pop experience of the sodas, the diners, the cafes. They call them sodas here. In the States, in Texas, they call them diners. So you really want to experience a mom and pop meal, a real authentic Costa Rican. The idea of you venturing off property is much safer once you explain that to the client. If they still want all inclusive because they're budgeting, I can tell them, look, I just was there myself last week, and I spent on an average of $15 to $20 per person in my family without alcohol and lunches, and then on dinners it was $25 to $45 for dinner, depending on the grade of the restaurant. So if you budget it properly, you can probably do better off without doing the all-inclusives and get to see more of Costa Rica. Again, I have some clients that do tell me, nope, I just want all-inclusive, and I completely understand that. But 90% of the time, those repeat clients, when they come back, they listen to me for the next time. They'll be like, hey, I want to try that off-property experience you were talking about now.
I mean, there's a reason why we're the experts, right? We live here, you've lived it yourself, and you know exactly. And it's those repeat clients that love to come back and love that service and that cultural immersion in and around Costa Rica and experience some of those traditional experiences. Costa Rican food's amazing. If you do go to the local sodas, I mean, we know it, right? Nonetheless, Ulrich, where would you recommend if a client is set to go maybe Volcano and then the beach, and they do want Guanacaste, they do want the all-inclusive, which all-inclusive resort do we tend to push?
Well, the more popular one is the Westin in Playa Conchal, and for several reasons. One, it has 7 different restaurants on site. It was voted the #3 beach recently in all of the Americas because it's made up of crushed shells. And when it was in Travel Leisure magazine as #3 beach in all the Americas, I was pretty proud of that. So it's the best beach in Costa Rica in technical terms. The next category we have is a bit of a notch down, but it's not in terms of service. It's just a smaller, which is the Margaritaville. It only has 2 restaurants. It's another beautiful white sand beach. I lived in that town, Flamingo, for about 15 years, and I managed a small boutique hotel there. So I know that beach is beautiful. It's got a great marina in the back. So that's Margaritaville. And then the other one that sometimes people, because the name, it kind of might shy people away, Planet Hollywood, because we think, oh yeah, it's going to be a Hollywood, but it's really great service, really great, great food, and it's a great family kind of all-inclusive resort. So those are the 3 that I would say, if you're looking into all-inclusive, those are the ones I would recommend.
Yeah, fantastic options. The Western, Margaritaville, slightly smaller, but again, all-inclusive options. Beautiful beaches. Planet Hollywood, really popular name. And again, we've mentioned that if you are in the Guanacaste area, you're going to see a lot more larger brand names, more resort and all-inclusive resort options. Yeah, 3 stellar options. I'll share the links with you guys there. And again, it's worth mentioning, as I started the webinar, they're great for families and couples if they want all-inclusive, but also groups. So again, if you're going to, if you are traveling in a group or a family, or I should say a friends group, most of the properties we mentioned will still work in most cases. Some of the smaller boutique properties around Arenal and Monteverde, you should double check. But those all-inclusive options are really good in Guanacaste. Laura, when it comes to smaller boutique options, and not necessarily in Flamingo Beach, as we discussed, or Conchal Beach, where the W and the Western are located. If you are a honeymooning couple or looking for some romance, you wanted something slightly quieter, what are my options in Guanacaste if I'm looking specifically for beaches, knowing that Manuel Antonio is good for nature?
Tons of options.
I
mean,
know.
off the top of my head, my favorite, because you mentioned honeymoon, would be the Andas Resort. It can be very romantic and a quieter setting. It is a big resort. However, everything's very spread out, and it's a very quiet place to be on site. I love it. I think it's beautiful there. We also, if you want to be kind of more in a town, and that way you can get more of a Costa Rican feel, just because Andas is a little bit more secluded. We do have great hotels like Cala Luna or Capitan Suizo located right in Tamarindo. They're both, kind of strategically placed in Tamarindo, which I love about them is that you're not right in the middle of town. So it's still quiet and a little bit secluded, but you can easily walk right into town and have all those dining options and activity options right there in Tamarindo. So I like to recommend those two as well.
Really nice options, yeah. And like you say, if you do want to have that experience of being close, Tamarindo is a great one. Capitan Suizo, you're right on the beach, and you don't find there's some, larger resorts that are actually built within 50 meter, the maritime law in Costa Rica. So you can only be so close to the sea. But some properties like Capitan Suizo are right on the sand. Margaritaville is a stone's throw across the road. It's right there. Planet Hollywood, as you mentioned. Andaz has access to a couple of beaches. Really nice options. I remember myself, I was filming at Bosque del Mar in Playa Hermosa. So again, if you want something that's really isolated and really small, between 30 and 40 rooms, and again, right on the beach, that's another really nice option for like a boutique place that I'm just thinking about. We can share you guys the links in the videos as well. So there's a lot of options. Laura, if I'm a couple, but also thinking about going to Manuel Antonio, what are your two top favorite options in Manuel Antonio when it comes to smaller eco nature experiences?
My two favorites, Emmanuel Antonio. Number one, Arenas del Mar. Uh, One of the only beachfront resorts in Manuel Antonio, so it gives it a leg up over some of the other ones. But also just the level of luxury and service that you get with Arenas del Mar, you don't find anywhere else in Manuel Antonio. So it is a great option. And then, a great four-star option, and maybe my favorite in the area is Si Como No. I love that resort. I find it so immersed with nature. You'll see monkeys everywhere on the property. Last time I was there was a sloth on the property. And the service there, again, is just phenomenal. So those would be my two recommendations.
And so you've also mentioned two great places that are great for families as well as couples. I mean, Arenas del Mar, for those of you who don't know, we've mentioned Senda and Arenas del Mar. They're actually run by the same sustainable management chain in Costa Rica called Cayuga. So if you're looking for a really green-friendly, eco-sustainable approach to travel, to high-end luxury travel, you can check Cayuga out as well. We sell all of their properties and work very closely with them, as they do great things for the local towns and the country as well. But yeah, like you mentioned, Laura, incredible service, Arenas del Mar. And Si Como No, beautiful ocean views, and they offer access down to the beach. I think Arenas del Mar is probably the only hotel that is right on the beach in Manuel Antonio. It's very difficult to get to. A lot of other properties are just up in the bluff. Then you take the little road down to the beach, and most hotels offer transport. But I thought it's worth mentioning. Ulrick, do you have a couple that you also want to throw out there for Manuel Antonio?
Well, you stole it when Arenas del Mar is my favorite, and it just the food is great, the service is great. It's right on the beach. If it Here's the thing, if you have more than a couple and it's a family and being on the beach is not a big thing, then I love Los Altos. Los Altos is another great, very high-end property, but the rooms come in either 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom or even 4 bedroom penthouses. So for a family, this is perfect, or for a group, it's perfect. They got great views there. It's like a luxury condo, and you take an elevator and it comes right into your floor of your room, and that's pretty cool. And it has a pool. It has a little access to a nice little beach at low tide. It's nice, but it also has a really good restaurant on site. So that would be my number 2 spot. And then number 3, stealing Laura once again from me, I'm gonna say Si Como No. I've always had a special place in my heart at Si Como No. The service and just the views and the wildlife is just fantastic.
Really good shout. So we actually had a question here from Kathy Kiggins. Kathy, thank you. Ulrich half answered your question. Ulrich, Kathy was asking, for 6 adults traveling, would Los Altos Resort be nice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I highly recommend it.
I was there enjoying a trip, a long weekend with my family as well, a couple of months ago. One of the nicest things, Kathy, that I'll add on to what Ulrich was saying, after the number of years that Los Altos has now been there, the property's really growing into the surrounding area. So you do feel a much more immersed into the forest as opposed to it being brand new. Like, I don't know how long it's been there now, maybe 5 or 10 years. But yeah, the monkeys, the access to the pool, the new spa, the views of the ocean, and then the ease to get down to the beach. And like Ulrich said, because you have the option of having 3 rooms open in their condominium style, it's great for groups and large families, especially with 6.
And they have different room categories. So the higher you go up, the better the views you have. The penthouse is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but the garden suites are cool too, because I stayed in one of those as well. I've been in the penthouse and the garden suite. The birds come like right on your patio, and the animals in it. So I love all of those rooms, but I'm particularly drawn towards the penthouse, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they are incredible. The higher up you go. Well, guys, we've covered so much. I had a couple more questions, but I'm going to ask each one of you the big question. We've given you loads of context over the last 45 minutes or so about what makes up the best 7 days. So it really depends, on your group. Are you a family? Are you a couple? Are you looking for nature, adventure, relaxation? Do you want to mix it up? Do you want to see the volcano? Are you into the nature, maybe in the cloud forest at Monteverde? Then do you want to go to the beach, Guanacaste over Manuel Antonio? These are all the key questions that come up all the time, especially for a first-time visit. So I'd like to ask each one of you for your own personal favorite. So Laura, if you want to go first, if you've got your own ideal 7 days in Costa Rica, what does that package look like?
My ideal 7 days in Costa Rica is 3 nights near the volcano, having some adventure there, doing, zip lining, whitewater rafting, experiencing the hanging bridges, getting to see that iconic volcano, staying at a hot springs resort, relaxing, having cocktails in the evening, and then traveling down to a Guanacaste beach, honestly, relaxing somewhere beachfront, do a sunset catamaran maybe, but just overall relaxing on the beach to unwind at the end of your vacation.
I'm ready to go. That sounds great. Ulrich, does yours differ? And if so, how?
If it's just my wife and I would say I would do the Monteverde Arenal. That would be my thing. I love fishing, okay, but she doesn't love fishing, so I wouldn't build the trip just for me to go fishing and her stay at. I've done that with her, and she
Yeah.
stayed at Arena. She enjoyed the property and got the spa treatment and everything. But if I'm planning a trip for us, I would do Amor Arenal and go to Amor Arenal. It's a great couples hotel with a little pool and the king size bed and their little cottages and everything. And then do the van transfer, which is, you go across the lake, up the mountain to Senda. And I would stay the last 3 nights in Senda. So I'd do 4 nights at the Arenal and then 3 nights at Senda. That's the way I would do it for my wife and I. A little
Nice.
getaway.
That's a great mix to throw it out there. And you know what? I'll give you my opinion as well because you mentioned Arenal, Guanacaste, Laura. I love the idea of Arenal 4 nights and Monteverde three. When I was selling vacations a long time ago and I first came over, a lot of flights were primarily going into San Jose at the time, and there was limited access to the north in Liberia before it got bigger. So for us back in the day, and it was still a special package, it used to be the typical you arrive in San Jose, you arrive at a decent time, 3 hours to the volcano, get your canopy zipline tour in, definitely go whitewater rafting, maybe do some waterfall rappelling, enjoy the hot springs in the evening, take the drive down to Manuel Antonio, see the national park because it was incredible, just the Cathedral Point, a really beautiful place to visit, enjoy some beach time, but then also mix it up with the incredible wildlife that you'll see. And so those two combinations, and then a 3 hour drive back to the San Jose airport, so you can come in and out of San Jose, or maybe fly domestically to make it only half an hour. So you a lot of great tips there, guys. I hope you've really enjoyed that. You guys have been awesome. Amazing questions. We've got through so much. We've also got loads of questions that you guys have been asking us. So I wanted to leave a little bit of time for some of the Q&As here. So let me run through a couple that we haven't actually answered yet. Some of them we already have, but I'll throw it over to you guys. So Ekta Murjani, again, I hope I'm saying your name right. Ulrich was asking, what does it look like when a family travels in October in the rainy season? So I guess how much rain might you see? And I guess it depends where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would have changed my planning for the October months, because certain areas of Costa Rica are not affected as much by other areas. Costa Rica, although we're the size of West Virginia, what I call a postage stamp, we have 11 different climactic temperate zones, or some places say 13, but 11 primary climactic temperate zones. And so that means that in October, you could be where I'm at here in San Jose. It's raining every afternoon and every evening, which is what happened this weekend. My father told me, because he lives here in Heredia. We were up in Monteverde, and it only rained at nighttime, so we had a totally different experience. Um, I would build something on the line of Arenal, and I would also put in Guanacaste or the Caribbean. This is their summer months in the Caribbean, so you might get an afternoon shower, but typically September, October are the busier months for Costa Rica on the Caribbean side.
Yeah.
Great places to visit. We didn't even touch that today in our meeting.
No,
So
and it's such a good point because obviously it's the whole Caribbean, Atlantic side of Costa Rica. It's just not something that comes up always for the first time. If you're coming for that first typical experience, mixing rainforest. And
yeah,
again, because depending where you're flying into Liberia or San Jose, it's easier, right, to keep those travel times close together, whether you're in Guanacaste at the beach or Manuel Antonio at the end. Really good stuff. Really good point. Laura, we've got another Laura G here was asking, what's a good balance between guided tours and just wandering on your own?
Great question. If you're looking to spot wildlife and maybe learn a little bit about wildlife, I highly recommend doing guided tours. However, there's some tours like maybe visiting the La Fortuna waterfall that you can absolutely just go and do that one on your own. However, I have done the Hanging Bridges tour here in La Fortuna quite a few times. I've done it a few times with a guide and once without. And I will tell you that the one time I did it without, I saw a few birds. Maybe that was it. I didn't see any sloths or monkeys or, any of that kind of stuff. So I do highly recommend on some of them doing it with a guide. However, that's something that if you're working with us, our travel experts are very honest about. And so, if you are looking to do some more things on your own, ask which ones are best because we will be honest and tell you which ones definitely do with a guide so you can get the full experience. But there's others that are perfectly fine to go do on your own.
Completely. Great answer. And I also think that depending on where you're staying, a lot more hotels in Costa Rica these days have self-guided trails. So depending where you stay, you can just go off and do a nice little, trail, take your flashlight, go out in the evening, even for an early night walk. And you're probably going to see quite a lot on site as well, for sure. Fantastic answer. We've got an anonymous question here. Ulrich, I'll throw this one over to you. How do you balance travel days with activity days so it doesn't feel like it's too much moving around?
wow, that's a great one. So what I like to do on a travel day with an activity day is I don't like to add anything unless the client asks me for it. And the only time I ever added in there would be, for example, I had a client about 6 months ago. He was adamant about seeing toucans, but he was going to go to Manuel Antonio. And I said to him, for sure you will see toucans at La Paz Waterfall Gardens, 100% guaranteed. It's like going to see the Mona Lisa.
Yes.
And he said, okay. He said, I want you to plan that in my itinerary, but I don't want to spend any time here in San Jose. So I had to coordinate with the transfer company to pick him up at the airport, head over to La Paz, do the toucans to see them, then head out to Manuel Antonio. And then on his way back, he wanted another day back to see the toucans. So we did that. So I will do that, but I typically don't do that for most clients. I want to get you to the destination, get you to the resort where you can unpack your gear, unwind, relax, have a welcome cocktail. Many of the hotels we work with give us a welcome cocktail. Enjoy the property, get to know a little bit about the property itself, because the people, the concierge, the front desk, they're all proud of where they work. They want to share their knowledge with you, and that's part of you're getting to intermingle with the culture. To me, that's the important part.
Fantastic. Yeah, great answer. And you even touched on a point of being efficient with your time. Doing a transfer tour connection is another way of actually utilizing A to B destinations and tours within your itinerary to actually plan it quite well. So yeah, fantastic. Really good point. We have a couple more questions, guys. We've got 5 minutes. So if you do have any other questions, please get them in now. I'm going to add in Laura and Ulrich's information here in the chat. So if you do want to learn a bit more about Laura Ulrich, you can actually open up their website and reach out to either one of them. If you need help planning your vacation, check out the information there in the chat. But we got a couple more questions here before we wrap up. We've done quite a lot of these, which are quite good. So I'm just seeing what else here. Another anonymous attendee, Laura, was asking, is there something unique in Monteverde that most travelers skip? It's a good question.
Something unique in Monteverde. I mean, Monteverde in itself is a unique destination. But for my clients looking for something completely special in Monteverde, I recommend the treetop dining options they have in Monteverde. You can go for a nice, amazing meal in a treetop canopy, and it is a completely unique experience that you don't see many places. So that would be my answer to that.
That's a really good one. There is that new dining experience that did some of the international headlines from the States to the BBC in the UK, where you can do that out there with incredible farm to table experience. And there's a top restaurant in Monteverde, so reach out to Laura for that. And I think I have to plug the Frog Pond tour in Monteverde. When I first came to Costa Rica and decided to stay, I became a frog guide, and I would take people around for an hour teaching them about frogs in Costa Rica. Not something that we particularly sell, but for $10 or $12, you can go around, get your ticket, and experience some of the local frogs from around the country in their terrariums. And if you do want to see the tropical wildlife side, there's some amazing frogs, and that's held in Monteverde. Most people will skip that because it's a very short tour, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm still here. So check it out, guys, if you want to learn more about frogs. We've got another question from a different Laura Ulrick here, which was any local food spots near La Fortuna that you love that aren't super touristy?
I would have to say Jalapas. That's one of my favorite places. It's mom and pop owned. They just great views towards when there's no clouds towards the back valley of San Carlos, and wonderful food. I always tell people you've got to go try Jalapas.
Jalapas. I'll type that in for anybody. And is Jalapas found in La Fortuna Centro?
Nope. Jalapas is up behind the springs. It's
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a great little property. And I usually send a little pre-arrival packet to my clients about 2 weeks before they come, telling them places that I've tried. And we have our agency list, and then I have Ulrich's little 1 or 2 little niche places that I like.
That's a great shout. I actually drove past that 2 weeks ago. I was coming back from the Springs and I'd never been around the back. And I was like, wow, look at this restaurant. And I saw the views and it was clear. And I was like, this is an amazing place to go and eat. And that's Jalapas.
Yeah.
There you go. See, I'm still learning things on these webinars as well. Fantastic. Carol, thank you for following up. It looks like you've traveled with us. Sergio was your travel consultant. That's fantastic. You say you stayed at the Springs. You had an amazing time. And Guanacaste, you had a good time. But you didn't care much for the all-inclusive resort and would rather go back to a resort that allows you more intimate experience the next time you come back. So there you go. One of our guests, Carol, thank you so much for that comment. That's super helpful. We have another question, Laura. How's the Andes Peninsula in Guanacaste? Can you explain it more or less?
The Papagayo Peninsula?
Yeah, Andes Peninsula, Papagayo, yeah.
Yeah. That area is unique in Costa Rica as there aren't really any towns there. It's mostly just the hotels and the tourism that operates there. However, I really highly recommend the beaches there, especially for people who like to swim. It's like a bay. So it almost, on a calm day, it looks like a lake. And so my mom, who is looking to come down here, and she's a big swimmer. And last time she was in Costa Rica, where we were staying, the beach was really rough and it was hard for her to swim there. So I said, next time we'll go to Papagayo because, it's a great place if you want to swim in the salt water. The hotels there are, they're all fantastic. They're more secluded, so you get more immersion. I love it there. I was just there a couple weeks ago and I highly recommend the Papagayo region.
Fantastic. I think Ekta is thinking about traveling to Andes in October. And they also asked, is it worth it? And can I see turtle nesting in October if I'm staying around the Papagayo area? Laura.
I'm going to throw that to Ulrick because I am actually not too familiar with the turtle nesting patterns.
Yeah, so that area is not going to be very common for the turtle nesting. Where you're going to need to go is more towards the south, beyond Tamarindo, Playa Grande, towards the Ostional. So that time of the year is kind of right, but it's the location's not right, to be very frank.
Yeah, so if you wanted Ekta to get there easier, maybe look at another option to have more flexibility, especially if you need to be in Playa Grande, in Tamarindo, or further south in Ostional to get down there and do a day tour. Really good. Okay, a couple more here. Rick Costello, thank you for your question, Rick. Ulrich, Rick asks, what do you recommend for a family traveling in late December into early January, especially if on a budget? And why are we smiling?
Well,
Explain Christmas.
well, here's the thing. Costa Rica has one major peak week a year. Apart from Easter week, the biggest week is New Year's week, Christmas week. That week is the week where pretty much here in the Central Valley, everything shuts down on a business level. The companies, the corporations. So everyone heads to the beach. Everyone and their grandma with the rocking chair on top of their car. I'm one of those guys, right? So we head to the beach and we try and find a cheaper accommodation because all the hotels, that's the week that they make their bang for their buck. I managed a boutique hotel in Flamingo, and our rates were about 45% higher than our regular high season rates. So the rates peak up. So from pretty much, I always tell my clients, if you really want to get bang for your buck, you really should look after the 2nd of January or before the 24th of December. Anything before that or after is fine. Inside of that, it's very, very difficult, to be very frank with you. And a lot of these places start booking a year in advance. I get clients that call me a year in advance, start booking up their hotels to secure their favorite, so to speak, spot at the beach.
Oh,
However,
super valid points. Yeah.
I want to add on to that. However, a lot of the hotels, the rates are double during Christmas time, but it is possible to do Costa Rica on a budget during Christmas time. I last week had a client who it's their only vacation time from work. They needed to come over the holidays. They were traveling on a strict $1,500 per person budget for a week in Costa Rica. And they were flexible with me, and we were able to find an option to make it work. So it is possible. It's difficult. Speak to an expert, but it can be done.
I love it. I love the positivity because it is challenging, and that's about as budget as you can get at Christmas. $1,500 per person, no flights included. So Rick, it depends entirely on how flexible you are with where you go. We do have certain allotments with some of our top properties that we can try and put together like a big jigsaw puzzle. So if you do have flexibility, maybe you can make it work. But like Ulrich says, if you can come even in the high season after January the 2nd, rates will drop down off their peak. And generally in early January, when kids are going back to school and it starts to get cold, there's a bit more availability because then it starts to pick up again like crazy, February, March, all the way into April and the Easter week.
Also, traffic is far less right after January 2nd. Everyone's gone back from their beach destinations. The people that live here in the Central Valley, the 1.5 million Costa Ricans and gringos, we're all back at our desks on January 2nd. So the traffic drops like in half.
And that saves a lot of time when traveling. That's a really good point. Very good question and great answer. And I love it, Laura. You'll be the person to go to for last minute Xmas vacation plans. Okay, Laura, I'm going to throw the last question over to you. Mike Swaiki, thank you for your question. He wants to know what's the best snorkeling area as he's traveling here in February next year.
Good question. I mean, Costa Rica in general is not known as a snorkeling destination. So you really do have to know where to go. I mean, we have the fantastic snorkeling tours off the coast of Uvita. Visiting, I'm blanking on the name, Adam. What's the name of the island right off the coast?
Caño.
Isla del Caño.
Yes.
A bit further south of Uvita off the coast of the Puerto, like near Drake Bay in Osa Peninsula.
Absolutely. That is where I would recommend if you're really interested in snorkeling and having good snorkeling. That would be my top recommendation on where to go.
That's a great one, Mike. Of course, if you're traveling in February and you've already got we don't know exactly if you know where you're traveling. If you are in the Osa, like Laura mentioned, Isla del Caño is amazing. You can snorkel in Manuel Antonio, maybe via a catamaran, so you get away from the beach and the swell. Wendy, thank you, as she's provided me with a great link here about snorkeling and diving. If you're in Guanacaste in February, you'll get lovely clear sections, Playa Hermosa, Playa Penca, Conchal. And of course, even if you are in the Caribbean, where you can find the only sections of the coral reef and the Puerto Viejo Cahuita side, depending on the weather and the time of year, it can also be quite clear. So there's three or four different spots that might work for you, Mike. Check out the link if you have time for snorkeling and diving information. Guys, you have been amazing. I hope everybody stayed to the end, has enjoyed this webinar. Ulrick and Laura, thank you so much for your time. You've provided some incredible information over the last hour.
Adam, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, mate, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Adam, thank you. Thank you for having us.
No problem. Hopefully you can both join us again very soon. And guys, as ever, if you've enjoyed the webinar, please give us a like or subscribe to never miss a future video on our YouTube channel. And of course, if you have questions for us, let us know in the description box below. And you can always reach out to Ulrick and Laura directly via their email in the information on this webinar and below as well. What did you want to hear from us in the next episode? Don't forget, we'll be coming back live in around 4 weeks' time towards the end of October as we approach Halloween for our next webinar. So don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter as well, and we'll always keep you informed here in Costa Rica for our next one. So guys, from me, Ulrick and Laura, until next time, hasta la próxima.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Ciao, guys. Take care.